What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Think Big podcast, where we don't just talk about success. We literally rewire your identity for it. I'm your host, Marlon Johnson, high performance coach and identity reprogramming specialist for entrepreneurs who are done playing small. Guys, if you're tired of self-sabotaging, if you're tired of overthinking and you're ready to execute like the 2.0 version of yourself, you are in the right place. It's time to lock in. I'm hanging out here today with my co-host, Sam Singh, the myth, the man, the legend of scale. Sam, it is good to see you. It's funny. We see each other every week, but sometimes it feels like a week is a month. How have you been, bro?
Yeah, and props to you for holding it down last week, because I wasn't able to make it last week. So props to you for holding it. So here's the thing: when we miss weeks, then it feels even longer. Then it feels like we haven't seen each other in 2 months. So no, dude, things are great. Things are great. Things are unique and difficult and fun right now across businesses, across brand, across everything. And then we are also basically getting ready for an international trip in a week. And so,
Not even. We
like,
got like 5 days.
yeah, dude. So stuff is like crazy right now, but I'm like, dude, I'm so stoked for it. And so, dude, today's gonna be fun. Today's fun because I think today what we're gonna do is echo a lot of things where we've touched on in the past. I don't think we've really gone super deep on, but I've been seeing a lot of influencers and industry leaders become a little bit more upfront about this.
Yep.
Real estate and businesses in general have been difficult the last year or so, even a little bit longer than the last year. Real estate specifically, I feel like there's been a culling the last year in wholesale, in lending, in a lot of micro industries in the world of like creative financing, and a lot of we're seeing this massive wipeout. I feel like that's happened over the marketplace. And here's what's crazy, man. I feel like the worst is not behind us yet, personally.
No, I think we're
Everything,
we're definitely like down in the valley, and like we're still like going through. Like it's gonna get deeper, and like
yeah,
we don't get the same steep drop, but we're definitely we're not on the upside. We're not on the
no,
upswing by any
no,
stretch of
not
the
yet,
imagination.
not yet. And I think there's a lot of optimism coming back into the marketplace, especially in the real estate, as buyer activity starts picking up. But I think as a whole, with not just economics, but legislation and politics and how consumer America affects all businesses, not just real estate, there is this trickling effect that's been brewing, I would say, for years. And I think it really started during COVID, when that was, I think, during the pandemic and when there were shutdowns, and the government at the time had to start, especially from the last Democratic presidency and the Democratic control of the three branches of government. There have been a lot of inflation and injection of money into the economy, and it's affected a lot of things. It's affected consumer behavior. It's affected cost for goods, cost of services. The real estate economy has gone like up and down in the weirdest way the last several years. And here's a new mix for real estate. Legislation, I think right now is going to affect real estate more, the real estate industry more than probably anything else. And so it's so funny. I know we're going to talk about consumer stuff. We're going to talk about macroeconomics. One thing that I wanted to hit on, I don't know if you saw it, wholesaling. And just so you guys know, for anyone who is not in the wholesale space, if you're a lender, you're a flipper, you just want to buy and hold, whatever it is, people don't understand that when it comes down to the world of investment properties, wholesalers play such a critical role. They
Yeah.
are the provider of deal flow. And the interesting thing is this: as wholesalers go out of business and wholesale gets cracked down on more and more and more and more, it will have a trickle effect on your ability to lend money to good operators. You know why? Because those good operators are going to have less and less deals to choose from. Flippers are going to have to start paying even more. Like this, we can dive into this in a moment. But it's funny, when something happens to wholesalers, it will affect the rest of the investment ecosystem. And that's what people are always, I think, not super
You're
wary
not
of.
keen on that. Yeah, because they don't realize wholesalers are the root, right? And if you affect the root of the tree, the branches, the bark, the fruit, everything else is attached to the root. Like
You,
we
you
go
know,
out and we,
you're,
Yeah.
Yeah, you're 100% right. If you actually like, I love that tree analogy because if you think about it, distressed homeowners with unique opportunities that allow you to get, homes at a discounted sale, that's the soil. And wholesalers are the roots that are just digging deeper and deeper and deeper, searching for nutrient-rich soil. And so what ends up happening is government comes in and starts putting these metal blockades underneath the roots, and it prevents them from going deeper and deeper. And so it doesn't mean wholesaling is going to go away completely.
No.
No, but how it's done, definitely. There will be a massively higher barrier to entry really soon. And it doesn't mean that wholesale, like there's like a lot of fanaticism about, is wholesale dead? I don't think it's dead. I don't think it's going to be dead anytime soon. I just think the way that we know it will change. How we know what a wholesaler looks like will change. It will no longer be widely accessible. I think for the last 5 to 7 years, wholesaling was positioned in the world of YouTube University as if you're broke as shit, got no money, got a ton of time on your hands, and you basically got nothing in life going for you, like you can make 10 grand a month wholesaling. Like that was kind of the spin, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what got me into wholesaling, no question
Same.
about it. Because that was my avatar. And it's funny,
100%.
like Sam, right before we had this podcast, I was talking to an investor, and we were mentioning that we're seeing less wholesale deals out there more than ever. Because you guys know I buy deals from wholesalers. Yes, I've wholesaled. I buy from wholesale. I buy on market. I buy wherever a good deal exists. But there's less and less opportunities even being placed out there in the marketplace than there were before. And we came to this realization that right now, if a wholesaler is operating, the same wholesale operation is taking 3 to 4 times more effort than it took even just a year ago, just 2 years ago in 2023. It's not the same. You don't have the same ease of getting deals right now, right? The market is changing drastically for a multitude of reasons. But one of the things I'm thinking that a lot of people aren't paying attention to either, and correct me if I'm wrong, with real estate as a whole, when we're wholesaling properties, we're wholesaling it to fix and flippers. Fix and flippers need to be able to renovate the properties, resell it on the market, and they're selling it to the open market. And what's happening right now is the open market is made up of the average Joe, the average citizen. And right now, those people are getting into a position where they can no longer afford to even buy into properties. Like Sam, I consider you and I, we operate inside of a circle of entrepreneurs. We're inside of I call it a snow globe. We don't see what the regular world sees. Our friends are pretty affluent. They're pretty well off. And so I'm typically disconnected from what's happening with mainstream society. It's like not until it bursts into my bubble do I become aware of it. And recently I was on Facebook where I am still friends with people from high school, people that I grew up with, people who had their head on straight, people who went to college, people who had careers, people who were earning good 6-figure salaries, people who had families. They weren't out drinking and partying. Like the people in class that you wouldn't think this person's going to end up a bum. And I'm starting to see some of those people make posts online about, hey, I have to leave my house and move back in with my parents. Hey, I need to sell my property. Hey, I just got laid off and like I thought I had a secure job. Like now that I'm starting to see that inside of my own world, it's that alarm that's saying, okay, the marketplace is beginning to feel the shocks. It's beginning to feel the waves of inflation. It's beginning to feel the waves of what's happening with regulation and legislation inside of our government. And if we as investors, we need to have the ability to look around corners. We shouldn't be alarmed by this. See, last year, I already saw this coming. And so we started to shift and we got out of certain markets. We got out of higher price point markets because what happens in higher price point markets is the waves affect those markets a lot more. When there are 20% corrections, 10% corrections in the marketplace, it hurts the Arizonas, the Seattles, the Texas, those places where people are buying homes for 700,000, 800,000. And if you're still thinking that you can go and flip those sort of deals right now, you're going to be sadly mistaken. And I'm watching, like Sam, what's interesting to me is like investors are still buying these deals as of 30 days ago, as of 45 days ago, and they're getting absolutely wrecked. And I'm like, why would you have bought that deal? Why?
Yeah,
it's not a good deal right now.
It's funny. It's and dude, like I live in California. Like imagine being in California, right? Where it's like, dude, a 5% market shift can be 50 to $100,000. Like it's a massive undertaking, depending on where you're at in certain parts of the country. And so I think what ends up happening is I want to be very clear here, guys. I think we talk about Sasha quite a bit on the podcast, who's a former partner and tremendously good friend of mine. And it's funny, she kind of realized that I had this like I don't want to say clairvoyancy, but like what seemed like a clairvoyancy in business where I would always come to her 6 months before something happened in the industry. And I'm like, because I see this happening and this happening and this happening and this happening, we're done. And she's like, what do you mean? Like, our pipeline's great. Like, why are we pivoting? Why are we switching? Why are we killing this? Why are we moving over here? And I'm like, just watch 6 months. Every single time I've been right. And I'm super grateful for that. It's actually
Yeah.
the reason why we got out of dispositions. We were doing Dispo JV, we were crushing Dispo JV, and we shut that down, not because we weren't good at it. We were phenomenal at it. But we understood that what's happening with economics of big companies competing for monopolies, the barrier to entry to disposition becomes so astronomically easy that the marketplace gets saturated. And then if you are a wholesaler, guys, I want you to be very real. And this is, I think, hey, Marlon, really quickly, on your screen, am I lagging? So I'm seeing me be framey.
No, you're not lagging for me.
Okay, so here's the thing. I want everyone to understand this. Every business model fundamentally is predicated. I mean, unless you're Google, unless you've created some unique software AI piece of code that will transcend all time, every business fundamentally is geared at a delta or a spread or an arbitrage, meaning that there is a gap in the marketplace between, either a buyer or a seller, something in between. Like fundamentally, that's always going to be it. Someone needs something and you can provide it at a value that other people potentially can't. And that difference is what you make. The problem is, as bigger companies start competing for monopolies, what do they almost always do? They very rarely, the bigger and bigger and bigger they get, they very rarely compete on product differentiation at a point when there's 20 companies and they're all equally big and they all are making tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions. What's going to end up happening is they will all fundamentally compete on price. And when they compete on price, what happens? Price drops. This is why I love Rob Wensley from InvestorLift is the one who actually taught me this originally. I saw he posted a reel about this. And do you guys know this? Marlon, you and I fly a lot. Did you know how much profit on average an airline makes per seat?
I have zero clue.
Dude, take a guess. Your $500, $600, $700 airplane ticket for an economy seat. How much do you think
profit they make per seat? I feel like airlines are becoming more commoditized. So I would say they're maybe operating at like a 5% profit margin.
Not even close. On average, I'll give you a numeric value. Their average profit per seat, like in the green, is between $1 to $1.50 per seat.
That's disgusting.
The reason why? No one is loyal to airlines. Nobody. We all shop. 90% of you, when you go and look at flights, if you're frequent flyers like us, Marlon, $5 says when you go look for a flight, you probably initially go to Google Flights.
I 100% go to Google Flights, which I got a funny story about that, but let's keep going.
Yeah, so Google Flights, and the reason why it's because we don't care, right? You don't go to American, you don't go to United, you don't go to Delta, you go to Google Flights. Why? Because with Google Flights, it will sort the shortest time and the cheapest price. There is no brand loyalty to airlines. Like it's not a thing unless you're, a ultra rich first class person. And so the reality is, as monopolies or gigantic corporations compete for a monopoly, price goes down. And then if you're let's just say in the world of, why does this tie to us and me killing off disposition JV? Because our spread, our value to the marketplace of the ecosystem was based on the fact that we had resources that other people didn't have. But what happens when all those resources start becoming widely accessible or even made free, right? Or are we worth anything? Are we bringing legitimate value to the marketplace as wholesalers or dispo wholesalers? No, we are not. And I told Sasha this 6 months before we shut that campaign down. And I was like, the only way this persists is if all these companies don't compete for market share, and they won't. They're going to keep lowering prices, and they're all trying to figure out a way to basically become free, right? So they can have mass market share. Everyone adopts their platforms, and then so I told her the only way that we stick this out is that happens, or we are preying upon the mass ignorance of all of our JV partners who don't know that all those things are free. And to me, I don't want to make money that way. To me, that's like unethical money, right? And so for everyone here, to Marlon's earlier point, as entrepreneurs, you need to have a crystal ball. You
Yep.
need to have a crystal ball and understanding, like I call it seeing the writing on the wall. You need to understand what the writing on the wall is, what it's pointing to, how it affects not just real estate, because real estate, there's like 20 different, 20 different subsets of real estate, probably more. It's like 50 to 100, right? And like wholesaling alone, there's like 20 subsets of wholesaling. And I want you guys to start paying attention to how what one thing affects and the trickle it has. So fun fact, we've all been talking about how Airbnb 3 years ago was like the hottest thing on earth. Now Airbnb is probably one of the dumbest things you can do with a single family property, because it's like if you buy a house and your only bet on it is to Airbnb it, good luck. And I am telling you, I don't have a course to sell you. I am not trying to sell you on real estate coaching. I own properties. Okay, I've done Airbnb. We make money with Airbnb. Like I just got an $8,000 for like a month client right now on an Airbnb. And I'm telling you right now, Airbnb is a stupid reason to buy properties. Like, can you make money with it? Yes. Should you buy a house thinking I'm just going to Airbnb it and that's it? Hell no. Why? Because Airbnb is not required. There's some demand for it, but the demand for hospitality is not as strong as people might think it is, especially in America, especially when it has 19 different competitors, the hotel lobbyists. And then, so fun fact, I'll put it into this way, into this perspective. If you go to Anaheim, California, that's where Disneyland is. Okay.
Mhm.
Disneyland, it literally has just miles around it. There are no single family houses. Do you know what's around it for miles? It's
Farms.
Dude, it's nothing but wow, I hate you. It's nothing, it is nothing but hotels, nothing but gigantic hotel chains, right? Like 10 stories high, hundreds, if not thousands of units each. And here's what happens. Imagine being a guy trying to buy a single family property so you can Airbnb it so people can go to Disney. The problem is that those hotels who are local, they drive so much more economy to that local ecosystem than your single family house ever will. And those local hotels, they actually lobby
Yep.
with local legislators to basically crack down on Airbnb, because Airbnb fundamentally is a platform. It is a website. It is nothing more than that. And so I want people to understand, when it's easy and we look at Airbnb, are there any grand ramifications? Like, yes, when we see Airbnb get wiped out, there's only a few thousand licenses available in Vegas for Airbnbs. Everyone who didn't have a license, who is still operating one, they will eventually get caught by the city. And the fines are not small. It's not like a $5,000 fine. I have a friend who got fined $200,000 by the city of Las Vegas
Yeah, it's
for
significant.
illegally running an Airbnb. And like, he's losing that home. He has to like get foreclosed on or like sell it at a massive loss, whatever. That doesn't have as much of a trickle effect as people think. It's like if you just have one and you bought a deal because you were going to Airbnb it, cool, you're screwed on that specific house, but that's about it. There's not a grand trickle effect on that. Where is there a grand trickle effect? To Marlon's earlier point, when the root of the tree gets culled.
And so something about this too, right? Because you mentioned this, right? Like it's these things like Airbnb strategy, non-essential. Right? In a down economy, it's not essential for people to get out and go and travel. Guys, by the way, don't say, well, during COVID, everybody was traveling. No, during COVID, there was a shutdown and some states were more free than others. So people chose to opt out of their states. And in the transition, they needed a short-term living situation. So that was a very unique scenario. But typically, traditionally, when markets start to go down, people are going on vacations less. And so with this being the case, I'm talking about pivoting, talking about how to adjust yourself, because you still want to be able to make money. And the reality is business still gets done. If you look back at when we've had previous down markets, the last big down market we had, 2008. right? Now, we are not in the same situation as a 2008, but there are some similarities as 2008 where people are being laid off. There's more fear in the marketplace. People are scared to make these long-term decisions, affordability of being able to move into homes, more foreclosures, this sort of thing. And what happened to the real estate investors? Well, I'll tell you what, the people who were doing fix and flips got screwed. The people who were doing fix and flips in those hot markets got absolutely wrecked because equity started to come down. Houses sat on markets, days on market started to increase. But guess what? There were still investors who were buying, who were still making money. Those were the long-term investors. Those were the buy and hold investors. Those were the turtle race investors who were in it for the long run. And guess what? In this coming market, there are going to be more of those investors. When you look at what is big money doing, guys, big money for the last 18 months has been getting extremely liquidated, right? When we look at the hedge funds, when we look at the BlackRocks, when we look at the Warren Buffetts, they have been stockpiling more cash than ever before. The only reason people get cash together is so that they can buy and hold long-term assets that they're able to pick up at a discounted rate. If I were brand new to wholesaling right now, I would actually be looking. I'm still going to flip deals to flippers in lower price point markets. I'm going to move away from the biggest, most expensive markets because I don't think those are going to do well. That's just my opinion. That's my version of a crystal ball. But I would start to build relationships with the guys who are now at the season where they have the capital, they have the bank financing, they have the track record that they'll still be able to borrow large amounts of money, even in a down market. And they're going to be going out and they're going to be picking up essentially rental properties. And I'm going to look for the landlord type investors because those landlord investors who are buying for cash flow, they are going to be picking up deals in the next, in my opinion, the next 12 to 18 months, right? Like I'm talking the long-term holders. You can still go out and grab deals for them, but you've got to understand the marketplace in which they're buying because those landlords, like Sam, you've been seeing it. Are you seeing the landlords go into like last year's hot markets, or are we starting to see more of these guys picking up properties out in the Ohio's, out in the Michigans, out in the Wisconsins, out in the like they're picking up in the Midwest now?
Dude, they're picking up in markets that are relatively insulated from market volatility. It's not that they're protected against market volatility, it's that market volatility doesn't affect them as much. So I want you guys to like play a mental exercise here. So in terms of debt servicing and debt leverage and be able to pay back debt attached to a property, if you go buy $1 million house, the market, let's just say, corrects at 10%. You lose 10% overnight because market is shit. Exaggerated example. In California, that's $100,000. That's $100,000 shift. That is substantial, right? Very substantial. In Ohio, if you have $100,000 house, a 10% shift is 10 grand. That is like in the average property in Ohio, like not in average, but there's a lot of properties in Ohio, and depending on the markets that you're in, you can cash flow with long-term rentals like $800+ a month, like to your pocket net. And it's like, dude, like any reasonable investor who's thinking 5, 10, 15 years out is like 10K loss in valuation that first year, but I'm still making my cash flow because the market is insulated. Cool. And so when we actually look at all these studies that are being done of markets that are most likely to basically collapse from an economic standpoint, from real estate valuation specifically, they're all the Salt Lake cities. They're all the places where, fun fact, if you actually look at it, during the pandemic, when everyone started working remote and everyone left the 2 major states, where did they leave? Everyone left California and they left New York. I know this. I live here. Like I'm like shocked that I'm still here. People left these places, and where did they all universally go? Salt Lake, Phoenix, Austin, Dallas, various parts of Florida, in the Carolinas, mainly Charlotte, North Carolina, Memphis, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee. You had all these places have this, like Boise, Idaho is another big one. You have all of these places have this insane, and here's the key word. I'm going to say artificial, and I'm going to explain why I use the word artificial. They had an artificial uptick in their valuations to almost this extreme level, and not artificial as in like someone fabricated it. Artificial because it happened because of a freak accident with a global shutdown thanks to a pandemic. And the reason why we want to learn from these things, the problem is you can't make business decisions assuming that the pandemic is always going to be existent, but it teaches us very, very real lessons. And so when you look at all the studies that are being done about which markets are more than likely to crash coincidingly, they're all those same markets that had the artificial increases, right? And so the interesting thing is all these places, people left California, they left New York, they left like the Northeast, the really expensive parts of the country, Connecticut. They left New York specifically, in California. Those are two major markets that they left. People left those markets, took their high salaries, went remote, bought overinflated price points in smaller markets. And the interesting thing is this is we were all kind of looking, it's like, you remember when like interest rates were like 2-3% in 2021, 2022, right? When it was like the golden age. It's why I think I was spoiled coming into wholesale at that time, because like everything was the deal. You could throw a rock and hit a deal. And I think we were all looking for a massive market correction or a massive depression. We were all waiting for that. And I think what happened is the government put in so much money and stabilized the economy just enough to the point where the crash never really fully came.
We delayed it.
And it's like we've been seeing this, right? You've been seeing this for 4 years now. We've seen all the industry leaders like crashes around the corner, and it hasn't fully come yet. And the reason why is the government has been basically subsidizing to prevent it. The problem now is like we are like worse than we've ever been. And the problem is the natural state of the economy is not self-correcting, because it kind of can't with the way things are going. And so all of this being said, I want people to understand pivoting is critical as business owners. And I'm not romantic about any one business model. I personally despise people who think that their business or their company or their micro niche is going to be around forever. It's not. And you can't guarantee that you are special enough to the point where your unique business, because you're the business owner of it, is always going to work. You can, like, Elon Musk is a genius business owner. But if you put him in a day trading company or a Forex company, like, he's going to do well because he's Elon. But you think that that business is going to stand on its own profitably for a long time without his face tweeting about it? No, it's not. And so people need to have that crystal ball in understanding how their unique business is going to be affected. And here's the key. If you're here and you're listening to this, the good thing is you're probably already a person who thinks this way. I want you to remember this. Your competition isn't thinking this way. Your competition is so busy thinking about tomorrow, the next day, maybe 3 days out. They're not thinking about what does the economy look like 6 months from now with legislation that's pending. So this past week, wholesale took another hit in the state of North Carolina. South Carolina, you remember recently, not too very long ago, was basically regulated heavily from a wholesale capacity, basically in your ability to market properties that you don't own or you haven't controlled. And North Carolina just did something very similar. Doesn't mean that you can't, acquire deals at a low price and sell it or arbitrage or wholesale. You can, but now you need capital. Now you need to double close. Now you need better buyers. And so what's going to happen is this. I think 99% of people are going to fall out of the industry. I really, especially from a wholesale.
We're seeing it right now. I'm seeing people that we know as industry leaders. I'm seeing people that are propped up on social media, people who have had solid operating businesses that are now leaving the industry due to stress, due to having bought bad deals, due to not changing their acquisition model over time. So 100%, people are leaving the market.
I mean, they're leaving, or they're removing themselves from the risk of marketing and spending money on overhead. And so they're trying to carry that. They're trying to pass the ball off, right, to someone else. Maybe it's students that they have in a coaching program, whatever it is. But what's interesting though is this, and I will say this. I've talked to so many people about this. I think what's going to happen is this. This is me speaking as me.
Yep.
I think that
wait, real quick before you say that. By the way, everyone, I should have said this at the very beginning. Then we're gonna have to start doing disclaimers on these. Guys, we are not financial advisors. This is not financial advice. Before you make any investment decision, please consult a professional. This is for educational purposes only. All right, Sam, let's keep going.
We like to use the phrase edutainment. We're educational and entertaining, and that's about it. 100%. That's why I'm like, anecdotally, I'm speaking as myself, and this is not any form of advice to you guys, because I have no idea about your businesses.
AJ says Sam's my financial advisor.
yeah, that'd be a losing bet. So here's the thing. It's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens. I think 99% of the industry will fall out. I think, but here's the thing is that the 1% that's left, right? People think it's going to be the best guys right now. They're the only ones who are going to be left. I think a lot of them will be left, but not all of them. I don't think that the remaining 1% is only reserved for the guys who are already at the top of the game. And I know this. The reason why I know this is because a lot of the guys at the top of the game have no freaking profit margins at all.
Yeah.
Like so many of them are at a razor's edge right now in their profitability.
Why is that? Why? Because I'm seeing a lot of this too. And like, this is something you and I talk about. We're inside of a lot of communities. We have access behind the scenes to a lot of people's businesses and doings, not just what they talk about on Instagram. Like we're in the rooms with them having those conversations, and you find out they're not doing as many deals or they're not as profitable as they present themselves to be. What's up? Why are the margins not there?
Yeah, just so you guys know, most industry leaders in the wholesale capacity, realistically, the good ones are between a 20 to 30% profit margin. Like the good ones who are like dialed and they know what they're doing. And they've been around a long time. Most are below that, and most of them usually are doing coaching, and the coaching helps offset their marketing costs. So they know that if I push a certain amount of affiliate, cool, I don't have to pay for my leads anymore. And so that's their way to rig the deck to stay in business. And if they didn't do that, if they didn't have a brand, if they didn't have influence, like their business on its own would not stand. Like the P&L would not sustain. I've actually talked to Pace Morby about this privately a couple of years ago, and he was the first one to tell me years ago. He's like, dude, he was like, when you go find the people who are all the guys online who are saying they're doing 30 plus deals a month, trust me, their P&Ls are hanging on by just like a thread. And like all these guys, one bad market shift, they go out. And so I think a lot of those guys are indexed. And here's the reason why profitability is an issue. Guys, I need you guys to understand this. There's this thing called CPL, cost per lead. It exists in every business ever. If you have leads, you have a business, you have leads. Doesn't matter if you're a lender, flipper, wholesaler, e-com guy, coaching person, doesn't matter. McDonald's has freaking leads, okay? Prime Energy has leads. They know their CPL, their cost per lead. And you assert your cost per lead by understanding how much you're spending on advertising. Guys, cost per lead only ever goes up in the macro sense. When we take a 10,000 foot step back and we look at the chart of the economy and cost per leads in any industry, micro industry, advertising platform, the only time cost per lead is super, super, super low is usually when that platform is brand new or that niche is brand new to that platform. So if we remember like a decade ago, maybe a decade and a half ago, drop shipping was the easiest thing on earth, right? You could go and find crappy products from China, run shitty Facebook ads on it, and then like make $1 million of profit a year, like from your bedroom.
Yep.
That was easy because not a lot of people were doing it. And cost per lead wasn't hyper competitive because you didn't have 1,000,001 people all paying the pixel to target the same keywords, the same demographics, the same everything. The problem is as markets become more and more saturated, and thanks to YouTube University and TikTok, this is happening in real estate. There are more real estate gurus now than ever before. And social media has made it so freaking easy for people to just get online and start talking about real estate, even if they're not actually running businesses. And then so what ends up happening is you have this mass adoption of these platforms, whether it's Facebook ads, Google ads, SEO, whether you're doing cold calling, texting, direct mailing, it doesn't matter. All these platforms, there's now so many people competing for the same level of attention as you. And we have the only way to win that game is to outspend your competition. And Dan Kennedy, who's like a GOAT marketer in the world of business, always says the guy who wins the game is the one who can spend the most to acquire the lead. Like that is it. The problem is that at a certain point, if you spend too much to acquire a lead, you will become unprofitable and then you will go out of business. And unless you can play that game of just bleeding money for some long-term exit, spoiler, in wholesaling, there is no long-term exit. It's just a cash machine. It's like, this is why all of these guys go out of business. Even the biggest guys, they're all running PPC. Here's the thing, when they're doing like 30, 40, 50 contracts a month, like they're usually doing PPC, PPL, direct mail, heavy spend. And the more they scale, the less they're profitable because they need more people, more systems, more spend, more everything. And they'll actually self-saturate their own markets. It's really interesting. I know like 10 guys who've done this, and they've actually wiped themselves out of the marketplace by oversaturating with their own marketing material. It's actually a really unique thing that can happen at a certain scale. And so what ends up happening is this.
And I'm curious, real quick, because like with this, as we're talking about this, like I want to make sure as we come through full circle on this, we're going to talk about what people could do to differentiate themselves so that they can still make profit inside the business. Because some people are going to continue to wholesale even after this conversation is done, and I want them to still wholesale, but I want them to be able to make profit. I want them to make money. I want them to be able to differentiate yourself. But guys, as we're telling you this, we're telling you this so that you can freak out, put your head in the sand, and do nothing about it. We're telling you this so that you can be aware and you can adjust accordingly while everyone else is still running last year's playbook.
I'll say this, and I appreciate that 100%, guys. Like, I know this all sounds like really negative, and here's the thing: it's actually not, because the person who's aware of all of this is the person who's the best equipped. Remember how I said not that 1% that's remaining? It's not the guys who are at the top of the game. I think that out of that 1%, half of it are the guys who are at the top of the game already, and they're smart and they like have all this data and they understand this. They're willing to pivot. I think the remainder of that 1% is going to be people who understand how to stay profitable at a really high level. And so for the last year and a half, I've been extremely obsessed, guys. We did the thing. Like, we used to do in texting alone with bulk marketing. We got all the way up to $18,000 a month in spend, a month in texting. If you guys have ever done texting, that's a lot of freaking texting to run $18,000 in spend a month. We took PPC in-house to $30,000 a month in spend. Like, I've done the high spend stuff. And here's the fun fact. Every part of my journey, and whenever I talk to someone who's super advanced, who's way further along than me, they've been around longer than me, the one thing they all say, and the ones who've stayed in the business long enough, key point, the ones who've stayed, lasted, right, innovated, pivoted, they're still in the game. A lot of the jaded guys who just fail out and they start coaching, they'll all tell you, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. No, it's not true. They just couldn't figure it out. The ones who figured it out, their actual answer almost always is they wish they spent less money on dumb shit. They wish they got more dialed in. They wish they found optimization levers that other people didn't. So I'm going to tell you guys right now, again, speaking as me, all marketing channels work. Direct mail works. PPL works. PPC works. YouTube, Facebook, TikTok ads, they all work. Cold call works. Texting works. Door knocking works. But not all of them cost the same amount of money. And I think people get spoiled because they look for shortcuts. People want the shortcut of like, I want to get 1 in 10. They see gurus online who are running sponsored ads telling the world, get a 1 in 10 with PPC, get a 1 in 8 with PPL, with my provider, this, that, and the other. And people they romanticize this laziness that comes with that. It's like, oh, I only have to do 1 in 10 and then it's good. Like, of course I want that, right? And then they coincidentally forget that you need an ethical provider. If you're not doing it yourself, and you don't have an ethical provider and you're going PPL, like, you may get shit leads that aren't what you think they are. And you're sure as hell not going to get a 1 in 10 buying PPL leads from a data provider that's actually just cold calling people and selling you that as a lead. You're not going to get a 1 in 10 with cold call leads. Sorry, it's not going to work. And then so one, a lot of conditions have to be met for that to be true. And then two, even if it is true, even if you're at a 1 in 10 with PPC or PPL or whatever you're doing, problem is this: as the market continues, all of the low-level people get wiped out. The bigger people will assert their monopolies. They will spend more. They will double down on what's working, and the cost per lead will only ever keep going up. And the problem that's I foresee over the next 12 months, especially over the next 12 months, is that PPC costs will go through the roof. PPL costs will go through the roof. Direct mail, it's like, I don't know many people right now crushing direct mail. I just don't. Like, they're in markets where like there's no competition. That's it. But if you're in a market that's worth being in, like, competition's a real thing. Like, could you imagine direct mailing in like Phoenix, Arizona, where it's like every other billboard on the highway is a hedge fund? It's like, good luck. You're going to spend yourself into a hole. And so whenever you do that, your ROI inherently goes down. And this is why it's alarming. I keep seeing like coaches online who are pushing, with our system, you can get a 4 to 5x ROI, like, on your marketing spend. And I'm like, in 12 months, that's not going to be enough. One bad quarter of bad escrows where deals fall through because of unforeseen lien issues, right? Or just bad stuff that happens, bad underwriting, this, that, and the other. It's like, you're going to go out of business. You're playing with the razor's edge. And then so I see the people who are thriving are the people who look for, and here's the key, guys. You have to look for a competitive advantage that boosts your ROI. Here's the key: without having to outspend your competition. and it's possible. You just have to get better. Like
Well,
fundamentally, you
I
have to
think
get better.
that right there is the piece that when I look at this, right, and I think about what can a person do, because I'm thinking from the standpoint of like me when I first got started, and something like this would freak me out and overwhelm me, where I'm like, but like I don't even have a budget. I could barely afford to pay for more leads. I'm working my hardest, and where that person gets screwed over is ultimately on that side that you just said, the get better part, which is they're getting on the phone and they're trying to negotiate and they're trying to work deals out like the people who are spending those massive amounts of money. Those people have to do volume. When those people have to do volume, guess what they start to sacrifice? Margin size. They start to negotiate themselves into lower and lower profits. You make your money in the buy. You make your money by being a better negotiator, by being a better communicator, by being a better salesperson. 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, Sam came on here and talked about sales processes. And you use those sales processes that when you finally do get a hold of somebody, you're able to convert at a higher margin on the transaction, on the deal. You've got to buy deeper right now. You get like the days of being able to pick up properties at 80% and sell it to a hedge fund at 90%. Those days are awesome. I miss those days. I felt like a genius in those days, but those days are gone. Right. The easy money, the drop shipping money, as Sam would call it, like it's over. And now, in order to be able to generate actual cash and generate wealth and create deals that are meaningfully moving the needle for you so that you can get to that place of looking for having a marketing budget in your business, you've got to get better at working the deals you currently do have and closing at higher margins, negotiating at better prices, increasing your skill set as a salesperson. Like if in 2025, you need to increase your skill set as a salesperson and as a marketer, those are the two most important skill sets you need to develop if you're still new. If you're at that place where you're like, I don't have $30,000 to drop on marketing. I don't have the PPC budget. I don't have the direct mail budget. You don't need those things yet. But you do need to increase your skill set. You do need to understand what's actually happening in the marketplace.
It's funny enough, dude. So for anyone who's newer and like wants to get some insight into what a scaled business looks like, we are, I would say, fairly scaled. Like we don't want to take wholesale to the moon because we just there's no point for us if it's not in alignment with what I want to do. But we are fairly scaled. And here's the fun fact. We don't do PPC anymore. We don't do PPL. We just turned off direct mail a few months ago. We are only doing calling, texting, and emailing. And our average spend per market that we're in total, this includes the data, the systems, the like a CRM cost for the systems, the dialer cost, the ancillary costs for the texting features and the AI plugins and all the things. We're less than $750 per market right now.
Eesh.
And here's the
Those
crazy
are big
thing.
numbers.
It's what's insane is per market, we're doing between like minimum worst case scenario, like we will do we're apocalyptic. We will do at least a deal per market. And we're in a ton of
Let me ask
markets.
you this right now with the deals that you guys have coming in,
Mhm.
what are you seeing as the main source of, because you're a part of your own deals, you're a part of JV deals, you're part of conversations with other people. What's been the pain point that's been creating the opportunities that have been creating the deals?
Yeah, fun fact. So we actually turned off JVs. So we don't do JVs right now. At least we don't really care to. Just because coming back to the whole disposition thing. Also, so here's the thing. Like the world of JVs, like you do one thing. Fundamentally, it's like two things you do. You either the one who brings the deal and brings the contract, or you're the one who sells the contract, right? The tricky thing is this. Like I mentioned earlier, we got out of the disposition JV game just because we understand what's happening with monopolies and competition for monopolies with the big softwares. So we got out of that game. And then why would we JV on the acquisition side? Because like we're damn good at dispo, obviously. And here's the thing on the acquisition side, people aren't more dialed in than me. So it's like whenever we try to work with JV people who do acquisitions, problem with them is like their businesses are unreliable. So when we were doing dispo JV, who was our target avatar? Guys doing acquisitions. They all sucked. I'll be very real with you. Like they'd get a deal a month if they were lucky, and they would spend themselves into a hole to do it. We're so plugged in and we're so dialed and optimized on our acquisitions that we can spend less than $750 a month and just get at least worst case, we're getting a deal per month per market. And like realistically, that's like if we get a deal, if we go a month and only get one deal in that market, like we are troubleshooting to figure out what the hell is going on. And the reason why is what we've done is we've actually carved out unique competitive advantages that are not tied to spending or outspending our competition. We call it FTM, which is first to market. We care, but guys, I'm gonna be very real with you here. Like literally, the greatest equalizer you have when you want to go toe to toe in a market with a guy spending $30,000 a month and you don't have that to spend, the great equalizer is speed.
Yep.
Speed wins. You guys heard this the phrase like time kills all deals. Speed is king. Speed is king. That is it. And so we can go into markets, and I've been the guy who spent 30 grand a month, and you know what? We were we made a lot of money. We overall in top line revenue. I wasn't super stoked on the profit margin. And guess what? It was like a scary point to me when we were doing up to 30,000 in spend per month, seeing that go out. And like, thank God everything worked out really well. But I remember having a revelation looking at it, and I was just like, if all of these deals in the pipeline, and you know people who've they have a 6-month period or a 3-month period where their entire pipeline dies. Just bad escrow, bad deal fell through, you know, this, that, and the other, buyer backed out, seller backed out, and like their pipeline just gets wiped overnight. I remember seeing that 30K of spend go out in a month. And I remember thinking to myself, like immediately there, that left my account no matter what. But if my pipeline dries out, that money would still go out, and I'd be in a hole that I don't know that I would want to like crawl back from, right? And so what we focus on is speed to lead in terms of a marketing aspect. There's a lot of unique nuanced things we can do there. We also focus on data purity. And so we go and get data that nobody else has access to or that no one else targets. When we do that, we don't have to pull 10, 15, 20, 30,000 leads a month or records a month. Like if you guys are pulling 10, 15, 20,000 records a month, like you will never compete. You just won't. There's actually a cap to what your ROI potential is. When you want to go like some of my terrible friends who are like trying this method and they kind of suck at this, they're doing like a 35 to 50x ROI stabilized. What's going on, Caroline?
Hey, what's going on, Sam? Do both of these work?
No, I gotta
only this one.
turn the knob up.
All right.
We're gonna have Caroline jump in on this too, actually, because you know what's funny is like you were just talking about you focus on data purity, and like that's where you guys are getting good deals from. And
First
this is
market,
something that, yeah, and Caroline and I like this is what you're saying actually is a prime example because Caroline is an investor. Most of you guys know her. If you don't, you need to know her. Caroline's somebody that's in the market, that's actively doing deals, that's actively making money. In fact, we got the plaque right here. Sam, I don't know if you know about this. Caroline just got her $200,000 a month plaque for absolutely crushing deals right now in this current economy.
Was that I couldn't? It was kind of glared. Was that looked like a ClickFunnels plaque?
Well, maybe they copied off of it, but it's not. It's from going.
Oh, I was about to say. I'm like, dang, you got
No.
ClickFunnels.
And we're using ClickFunnels. Yes, we are absolutely using those things right now with Jonathan. But no, it's not from ClickFunnels. I think it's just similar. Yeah.
And yeah, and 100%, Marlon. This all goes back to this. It's people need, and Caroline's a phenomenal example of this because Caroline is so good at foreclosures and creative financing to uniquely solve problems. The fun fact is this: 90, I would say about 90 to 95% of competition who is marketing to the same sellers that Caroline is. Problem with them is they only have a cash offer in their tool belt, and that's it. And just so you guys know, that's like 90% of wholesalers. Like even the ones who say they know creative financing can't execute on creative financing. Like that is just a raw truth. And so Caroline is able to go and crush it by having a nuance and a niche that like helps her bypass 90, 95% of competition. And like the key there is what we said earlier, Marlon, which is operator skill set, right?
Yep.
And so as a business owner, if you like, I'm a firm believer of hiring people who are like really good and having A-level talent, but that doesn't mean that you have the excuse of sucking. Like you should still, as the business owner, as the CEO, the COO, whatever role you fit in the business as its leader, you should aim to be the most skilled person there.
I want to ask Caroline this actually, because that point right now, and I got to see it because I live with Caroline. Caroline, about 6 months ago, you invested heavily into your business, and what did that investment look like? What was the investment? Because you took a lot of money and you invested into your business. I don't even know if you know where I'm leading you on this, but what did you invest?
When I bought a mentorship again? when I went into another mentorship. So there's not only, and I wanted to make sure I see that we tagged my YouTube on here. So I'm glad to see some people on here. Jump in. This is the Think Big podcast. I just bombarded in here because Marlon wasn't playing Call of Duty or pickleball with me. But yeah, no, I invested in a mentorship that was specific though. A mentorship that had a nerd that already had all of the systems and processes written out, and he'd done all of these videos. Like he had like Google Documents with Loom videos explaining how to fill everything out and to make sure that we're tracking our KPIs. I was actually in one of the calls today just talking about like, here, actually I have my notes. He was going into like, cause some people were asking like, what's my conversion cycle? So we need to make our cash conversion cycle faster because you have things sitting for so long. So we were going to talk about the market. I was actually on the phone with Greg Clark before I got home. You're like, hey, if you get back, come talk about the market right now. And they were just talking about how can we get these to close faster. Talking about how long it's going to take for all of these deals to close. If we do cash, it should be 30 days or less. Typically, a novation 45 days or less. A subtail can be, and I was just adding these for myself. Our subtails are between 3 to 6 months sometimes because we have homeowners more time. So if you're having money on a deal out even longer, it's like, man, am I gonna make more money if I subtail this, or should I just wholesale this because I will have no holding costs? I won't have to worry about the market going up or down. I don't know if you guys already talked about this, but yeah, I invested in a mentorship. That's where I got that plaque because, and we don't have everything figured out. We're still going in there. We're correcting and continuing, but we're making larger assignments because we're being extremely focused. And then like we made like this deal, we just got under contract last week that I told you about. So Sam, originally we were stopping a foreclosure for a lady. We were going to buy it sub 2 and we were going to just list it on the MLS. So like I wasn't going to go in and do any work to it. Maybe fix the tub because it looked like somebody just punched through the wall right into the spigot. But if we would have grabbed it, reinstated, given her cash, and then listed on the MLS, we'd probably walk away with like between $30,000 to $50,000 on this deal. But that would be 3 to 6 months from now. And she waited too long and she didn't sign our contract that we had in place, our agreement. And so day of the auction, we had to scramble and do a lot of things and we were going to buy it. And we're like, we'll buy it still, but the game has changed because it's an emergency to stop everything. Got a cash contract, assigned it, and we're going to make probably around $40,000 on this cash contract now. So less time, we'll close in 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. So our cash conversion cycle is much shorter, but I wouldn't have retraded is what they call it, gone lower on that unless like, because I always think about how can I take care of everybody and how can I make these things work? But sometimes guys, you can make money on deals because we're helping her move. We're helping get movers over there. We're jumping through a ton of hoops for this lady.
Well, and I want to highlight 2 things on this, right? Because essentially one, Caroline reinvested in herself, and something that she didn't mention, your sales training.
Oh yeah.
This girl went heavy as hell last year on sales training. Like, and every day, like she was just sales training, improving her ability to go out and negotiate, improving her ability to go out and contract properties at a lower price. That deal that she's saying where she's about to make $40,000 on, what she didn't tell you guys was she went and got, what did you guys negotiate? Like a $50,000 price reduction?
65, yeah.
A $65,000 price reduction.
And the homeowner's still walking away with like $70,000. Like they're still making a ton of money. They just would have made more if they like.
And are you guys buying deeper right now? Because like the market is shifting. Like you guys have done, like you're now in the season where you've taken on some flips now. So like I still flip. I'm flipping, guys. I am still flipping, but I'm flipping in markets where it makes sense. And you're flipping now. And what's going on with those flips?
I'm going to show you a text message that I just sent earlier today. Where is this? I just said,
because like guys, like as we're talking about this stuff, I'm happy Caroline just walked in here.
Read what this says. We were talking about the breakdown on this deal. I said, and what is this right here?
It says, looks good to me. If I ever flip again, shoot me. All right. So she's saying, I'm not flipping right now because Caroline's experienced some tough stuff with flips. Like guys, when the market starts correcting like this, you have to buy deeper. Flips aren't going to work the same. You have to think about the end buyer. You have to be aware of how the entire ecosystem affects your ability to make money in the marketplace.
The affordability too, at the end of the day. Like, so one of our flips, the one that was just 10 minutes from our house here, Sam, we took this house down. It looked like there was tenants were in it. They were not paying. It was just like, it was cosmetic. We were going to fix the fixtures. There was a few holes in the wall. We're going to patch those holes and put laminate flooring out throughout the house. Like 3 days before we're supposed to close, the buyer was coming in from California. Their inspector was walking the property. Their inspector contacted Mark, our agent, and was like, hey, you guys have a leak. We didn't do any plumbing. We're like, what do you mean we have a leak? There's like an L joint. It looked like somebody took a needle and just poked it. It had been leaking. I almost went over there that weekend too. I was like, I should just go check on the house. It had been like 4 days between somebody being at the house and not. The roof had caved in. It caused about $6,000 worth of damage, or the ceiling had caved in, $6,000 worth of damage, and we were supposed to close in a few days.
I remember seeing
that was brutal. And the crazy thing is we paid Lindsay $10,000 on that deal. I think I made $7,000 on that deal. So yeah, buy deeper. And it's just, you're taking on so many risks and you couldn't have done anything. It was an old PVC pipe. Like it was old and they went in and redid it.
Let me do a fire round question for both Sam and Caroline.
Okay.
I want you guys to give me like quick answers on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Are you actively marketing for creative finance deals in this marketplace right now?
Fuck no.
Sam?
No.
Okay. I love that. All right. I absolutely love that. Are you currently right now looking at the opportunity to flip more properties in this marketplace?
I'm going to say what I just said before. Fuck no again.
Yeah, no, I'll give you a reasoning behind this. And I actually want to highlight two things that Caroline said. Number one is that from a micro perspective, we talked about macro pivoting and macro adjusting based on seeing shadows, seeing the writing on the wall. Caroline did a phenomenal job of in the moment from a very micro perspective, pivoting within like a month or a few days of an auction. So she thought she was going to flip it and they basically turned around and like had a totally different game plan. You have to be able to adjust that quick. Like adjusting isn't, I know a large part of what we were talking about today, Marlon, was
speed of implementation.
Was pivoting, across like 6 months. Now you got to be able to pivot like within 2 days sometimes. And like, you have to be able to make the executive decision and do that. Part two is I love that Caroline's, and I'm sure already doing this in the past, but maybe more emphatically now. It's a little bit different when you have a coach who's like an objective voice, making sure you focus on these things. Guys, I was never big on flipping, but I was really big on wholesaling. And wholesaling has risk because you buy the property. You essentially do, right? Unless you've got like same day pass-through funding. And what ended up happening was this. My viewpoint is simply, how much money do I want to make in a year in profit? Like, that's it. And so we go look at a 60K flip or an 80K flip, even if it's pure profit. But it takes me 6 months. And for me, I look at like, if I want to make $1 million in profit in a year and let's like an 80K profit, like that's huge. But 6 months is a lot of time for shit to hit the fan.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
Really. And so for me, I'm like, and all of the logistics, the private capital, the headache, the operations, everything that goes into making sure that thing goes, it takes away from your potency and your ability to go and invest in other things. So anytime, this is like why I can't reconcile with flipping myself personally, is I'm like, I look at that and I'm like, why take it when I can go and wholesale it for 15, 20 grand, immediately recoup the funds and pump it back into marketing to something that is more dynamic, more like quicker. And like, I'll probably churn out way more. And
not only that, but what's your peace of mind, Sam? Like I look at your Instagram story, you were playing Batman the other day and you go to the beach with your dogs. It's just how much, again, I'll always talk about when you were doing flips and stuff. Sure. It's just on the back of your mind. You're like, I hope nobody goes in there and is a squatter. I hope another pipe doesn't burst. Like not only does it take time, it takes your peace away. And it depends, like your body, your choice. You guys do what you want to in your businesses, but like let somebody who's like already got all of these teams, they need the volume, they need to do a bunch of deals. And they're like, I can get less on this deal because I want to keep my contractors busy. So I would wholesale, coming back into your question, I wholesale everything. But I was going to say, not only is it quick to get your cash back, it's your peace of mind. You don't have to worry about, speaking of, dude, my freaking great person that was project managing it. I love them. Good person, a friend. They were not actually walking the property and they sent an assistant to walk the property. And it's just like, how are all of these things being dropped? Why do I have to go back? Like I kind of felt like an asshole. I was going back and I was like
flips can be stressful.
Why did our flooring stop here? Why do we literally have a transition piece when it's the exact same flooring? Why don't you just now take these 3 planks up and make it so it's seamless? Why would we have a transition piece where there doesn't need to be? Just like little things like that. So you always have to double check people's work, and it's not worth my time.
And something that came to my mind while you two were talking is what happens, and I see this a lot of times with the investors, they get caught up more on they get so hyper-focused on the tool they're using versus the job that needs to be done, right? Sam said he thinks backwards from how much money he wants to make, and then he looks at the marketplace for what it's doing and what it's trending towards, and determines based on how the market is trending, the best tool to use right now would actually be, hey, let me just focus purely on controlling my own acquisition through this particular model. In another season, Sam was like, hey, you know what? It actually makes sense to wholesale right now because the markets are shooting up. We could capitalize. We can take rips off of the trend of the market. But he doesn't fall in love with this is what I do because he understands, it's going to pivot. In fact, the three of us, we all have a friend, Alexis Morgan. And I was talking to her a few months ago and we were having that conversation and she said, hey, there's something I'm doing in business right now. I'm not going to give away her strategy, but she was like, I'm capitalizing on this heavily right now because I am very aware that this is a trending bubble that will eventually burst. And now is the time to strike while the iron is hot. I'm getting my bag so that I can be in a position to transition later on. And if you guys aren't looking at right now the current market and asking yourself, what's the best way to get the highest and best use out of this current market trend, out of the fact that the market is starting to take a dip, at the fact that there is more fear inside the marketplace, that there's less affordability, that people are looking, like you have to think about what the market is doing currently, adjust your sales accordingly, and capitalize on this so that you can live to build your business another day.
This is so good, dude. This is so damn good. Guys, 100%. I think one thing that's really that really comes to mind for me is you can't have an ego and you can't have an attachment to a marketing channel, to a style of business, to a niche, to anything. Like fundamentally, I always firmly believe this. Whenever, Marlon, I come across people who are like emphatic about their calling or texting or co-living or Airbnb, whatever their thing is. And very often I look at it and I'm like, and I take that objective step back. And I'm like, why did you get into this industry? Be real with me. It wasn't to have an Airbnb. You got into this industry to make money. You got into the industry to make a lot of money. Like, let's be very granularly real here with ourselves. And when you're in pivotal moments and you have to make a decision to adjust the sales, your guiding light, fundamentally, it's like, well, number one, always do the right thing, but also doing the right thing and making the most amount of money possible while doing the right thing. They're not mutually exclusive. Like that's the thing. You can have both. So if like Caroline, who's able to pivot and still help the seller and still make a shit ton of money, you can do both. The thing is, you as a CEO, as a business owner, remember, no one's in your business. No one's going to make that call for you. It's on you. Now, unless you're paying and investing tens of thousands of dollars into coaching, like good one-on-one business structured coaching, and you have a coach who you can rely on, and hell, when you join those programs, they'll explicitly tell you for compliance reasons that they're not actually going to make that call for you. They're just going to advise. And then Caroline, I'm assuming I know exactly who you're working with. I think they're phenomenal. I have a lot of respect for what they've done virtually from afar. I don't have a relationship with them, but everything I've seen, I'm like, damn, I love how they're going about their program. With them, I'm sure that they've helped you as a CEO or as a business owner own your decisions more and be more calculated in why are we making, these decisions. I look at someone, I learned this from two people. I learned this, number one, from Layla Hermosi, and then it was then reinforced by a really good friend of mine named Tiffany High, who's a phenomenal wholesale coach, probably like one of the biggest in the industry. And they both always say, we make data-driven decisions, not drama-driven decisions. And so it's always data, not drama. And so guys,
100%.
Yeah. So I want to say this for everybody. Coaching, and like as I'm now at 184 grand in coaching and mastermind over the last three and a half years. Like that's how much I've invested so far. One, I wish I did it sooner. One, I wish I leveled up the type of coaching I was getting sooner too. I remember like for a long period of like my coaching, I'm like, I went to like beginner program to another beginner program to another beginner program, not realizing that they were that. Caroline, it sounds like, to my understanding, the program that you're in, it's very much intensive in your business. And so Marlon and I talk a lot about this, guys. Masterminds are great. Masterminds are rooms where 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 people get together and they kind of like campfire, kumbaya. But the problem with those things is your business isn't in the trenches being built. And it sounds like Caroline's in a position where like that's what's happening. What did that plaque? It was like 200K in a month.
Yeah. We had 1 month. Actually, I didn't realize this. Bobby sent me a HUD. We had one where we made over $300,000 in 1 month, which is crazy. Yeah, which is crazy. So yeah, we did. They didn't have a plaque for that, so we just got the 200.
You need to go get that plaque.
There we go. But
that is huge.
But it comes into because you do get people that like. So Chandler is his name. You guys have probably seen me post about him, but Chandler's really good. And he went through a bunch of other higher level courses. So I liked it because he is such a data-driven nerd, coming back into what you said. And it's like, that's great. It's great you guys are doing deals, but like how many, like just what's your cost of transaction? How much are you guys spending on your leads? How long is it taking you guys to close? What is your projections for the year? It just helps you get a 50,000 foot view on your business. I forget what your question was, Sam, but basically, yeah, it helps me make data-driven decisions. And yeah, we had a month where we did that. Oh, I was going to say the delegation is huge. So somebody else was just, who was I? I was in one of their coaching calls and they were like, yeah, like the people on my sales team, I heard you talk about hiring A players. Like the people on my sales team just aren't that good. Like they're just not as hungry as me. Like I need to go and make those closes. But like, even if there's going to be a season where like you're training people or you're working with people, and even you're not going to be super good at the beginning. You're going to keep reinvesting yourself. So I didn't realize it's actually this June will be 2 years since I did that sales training. And I'm thinking of joining another sales training just to continue doing training and get different perspectives. Like I will just, because one,
skills are perishable.
Yeah. And one, it's a write-off. So it's going to help me. And two, I'm going to meet more people from this mastermind that I can do deals with or connect with. Like, what is the opportunity going to come from that? And I'm just thinking, I joined another one last year. It was a beginner thing, but I wanted to pay for the relationship with Tino.
Yep.
And I paid for that. So it's just, where's your opportunity and what can you learn? Like, I just realized I was not offering low enough and I was giving away the whole house. Basically.
I think that's the number one. If there's like one thing, if you guys only remember one thing from this entire episode, it's going to be rule number one of investing. It's rule number one of business is you make your money in the buy. You got to buy things cheaper. You need larger margins. If you like, here's the reality in business, you can go after high margins and you can go after low margins. You want to target the high margins.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go after things where there's a big spread, where you're making more money per transaction, per deal. There's a higher ROI on your effort. If you don't do that, if you don't develop the skill set to be able to do that in your space, you are going to quickly burn out and have not much to show at the end of all your effort. It's no better than a 9-to-5, because a 9-to-5 is effectively just a low margin trade. Yeah. That's it. Wholesaling, it's just a high margin trade. Building a business is just an even higher margin trade. Like at some point, like the reality is, even Sam as a business owner, myself, Caroline, we're all working all day long anyway. Like no matter what, you're going to be working. Your goal is to get more for your work.
How can you get the highest ROI? How can you get the biggest return on investment? Here's the thing, like, I don't know if I think you still have your wholesaling business, Sam, but like, I'm not going to wholesale forever.
No,
you know, like it's a means to, yeah, nobody wholesales for like, and we actually talked about this at the mastermind. They're like, it's really hard to sell a wholesale business because it's not.
I wonder where I've heard that before.
You can't
it's like
do it.
There's this handsome Indian man with a strong jawline.
I thought he was Italian.
Yeah, he's both.
What is this? But you know, it comes back into it. It's just like there's a season for everything. And if we need to stack cash right now, you're going to learn skills. It's a season of life, but the data-driven decisions are huge. And I don't think enough people focus on that. So finding a nerd that has those data-driven processes already written out for you that can help you capitalize on it is huge. And to wrap up, because I actually have to head out of here. I was just stopping in for a moment so you guys can finish your podcast. For everybody on here, yeah, the market is different. So buy deeper, be smarter on your offers, and like Sam, me, and then you're buying properties in Milwaukee right now.
Yeah, I'm still flip. I do flip. Like I want everyone to know it. I don't like scream it from the rooftops on my social media, but we're still actively flipping. We got flips going on right now, but we are buying, and I'm telling everyone this right now, 30 to 40 cents on the dollar. And if you think deals can't happen that way, you're just telling me you're not willing to be uncomfortable. Because that's all it is. It's like we're just uncomfortable with offers. We're like the wholesalers we buy deals from. We've trained. Life hack. No one asked for it, but I'm giving it anyway because I do buy deals from wholesalers. If you want good deals from wholesalers, train the wholesalers. They're your free employees.
That's right? A huge one.
Literally go and train your wholesalers on how to do deals for you and bring deals for you. And they will come back to you and bring those deals. So that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day, but it's been phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, thanks for letting me bump in here. If you guys need me, I am on Instagram. Marlon gave my username here, but message them. Sam, where's your market that you're buying? Because I'm buying like Atlanta, Phoenix, major cities. I'll buy within there. Where are you buying, Sam?
Or I'm now only buying self-storage. So I'm not doing single. I'm getting rid of all my single family actually. So we're selling all of it.
Nice.
Sam makes way too much money.
That's a poor guy. He's struggling.
Guys, I'm only buying in Milwaukee. We are only buying flips, and we are only buying single family and duplex flips. Nothing else. No 3 units, no multi-units, no buy and holds. Only flips is what we're buying right now.
Yeah. So and somebody said, are you buying in Texas? Yeah. Major cities. If the number again, and he just said 30 cents on the dollar. I cannot help it, but I train a lot of newbies. That means like if the house is worth $1, he's buying it at 30 cents. So he can put money into it and then make a profit. Like he'll be all into it at 60 cents and then sell it for $1. So you're making good margins. So that's a good reminder just on your deals for everybody. But thanks for letting me jump in here, guys. I'm gonna hand it back to you.
Later, Caroline.
See, love you, bye.
Dude,
Yeah,
she's epic.
Yeah,
And it's
plus
funny, bro.
Say that
There's not many people in the industry that I'm like virtually looking afar. There's not many people that I am more in admiration of than Caroline Kane and her journey. So
I know,
that's
it's-
awesome.
and it's not just her beautiful red hair and her amazing smile. Like we just, she's actually a freaking stone cold killer in business. Like freaking love Caroline.
Yep. Marlon, let's wrap it, man. We are
Yep.
15 minutes over.
We are a hecka over. So, guys, wow, holy moly. I think this is one of the longer episodes of the Think Big podcast we've done. So, if this episode hit home tonight, don't just think about what we spoke about. I want you to act on it. You already know what you're capable of. Now's the time to become the version of yourself who doesn't miss. And so, if you're serious about taking your business, your life, everything to the next level, keep tuning in and reach out to us. Like, start a conversation, reach out to me, DM me on Instagram, DM Sam on Instagram. Let us know how we can help. If you need help in your business, if you're stuck anywhere, reach out, let us know how we can help, and make sure you are back here next week for another episode of the Think Big podcast, because now is the time to think bigger. You have no more excuse.